The fog is lifting. Clarity is calling you forward. Welcome to Forward in Freedom. I'm Tanya Johnson. This is where awareness becomes power. Let's move forward in freedom.
Have you ever packed a suitcase and realized you weren't just deciding what to take? Sometimes you're deciding what you're willing to carry into your next chapter. You know, a suitcase can tell quite a story, not because of where it's going, because of what someone chooses to put inside. Sometimes it's filled with excitement, a family vacation, a long awaited adventure, a new opportunity. Sometimes it's much heavier than it looks, not because of what's inside, because of what it represents. A move you never expected, the end of a marriage, cleaning out a parent's home after that parent died, leaving the neighborhood where you raised your children, packing the last box before retirement, helping your son or daughter move into a college dorm, starting over in a city where you don't know a single person. Life has a way of bringing all of us to moments we never planned for. The details are different. The feeling is remarkably familiar. You're standing at the edge of a chapter that's ending while wondering if you have the strength to begin another. Maybe that's where you find yourself today. Not because you've given up. Sometimes an ending can make even the strongest person question what comes next. And endings have a way of asking questions that beginnings never do. Can I really begin again? Will this ever feel like home? Will I ever laugh like I used to? Will I ever feel like myself again? I think if we're honest, there's another question quietly hiding underneath all of those. I don't know if I have the strength to start over again. I've watched people stand at those moments more times than I can count. Different stories, different circumstances, the same quiet uncertainty. Then something occurred to me. Maybe the hardest part of beginning again isn't the next step. Maybe it's believing there's still something beautiful waiting on the other side of the step. Because when one chapter closes, our eyes naturally stay fixed on what we've lost. That's understandable. Loss deserves to be acknowledged. It deserves to be grieved. But I wonder if grief sometimes keeps us looking backward just long enough to miss what has quietly begun right in front of us. I think that's the conversation I'd like us to have today. Not about pretending endings don't hurt. They do. But about discovering what every ending quietly makes possible. And that made me look at the suitcase a little differently. If every ending creates space, what am I so afraid will happen if I step into it? I don't think we're always afraid of beginning again. I think we're afraid of beginning again without what has always felt familiar. There's comfort in the familiar, even when it wasn't healthy, even when it was painful, even when we knew it couldn't stay the way it was. Familiar asks very little of us. Beginning again asks us to trust. That's why I keep coming back to the suitcase. Have you ever noticed when you're getting ready for a trip, there always comes a moment when you have to decide what's worth taking? Not because the suitcase isn't big enough, because carrying everything will eventually keep you from moving. Life has a way of asking us that same question. Not just where we're traveling, when we're transitioning. What are you taking with you? Will you pack gratitude or regret? Will you pack wisdom or resentment? Will you pack hope or the fear that whispers, nothing good could possibly come after this? We don't always realize it, but we're packing something, every single one of us. The more I sat with it, the more I could see. The suitcase isn't really about what we're leaving. It's about where we're becoming. It's about who we're becoming. Because every transition quietly asks, what kind of person will walk into the next chapter? Not what happened to you, but who are you becoming because of what happened? That question shifted something for me. For years, I thought courage meant having confidence before taking the next step. Now, I wonder if courage has been something much simpler. Maybe courage is simply taking the next faithful step before you feel ready. Sometimes we're so busy grieving the chapter that ended, we don't notice the next chapter has already begun. It doesn't begin when all the questions have been answered. It begins the moment we decide to keep walking. That's why I don't think beginning again is about forgetting where you've been. It's about refusing to let where you've been decide where you can go. And maybe that's what hope has been trying to tell us all along. Not everything will be easy, but there's still more of our story to live. Maybe that's why beginnings rarely announce themselves. They don't arrive with a spotlight. They arrive one ordinary step at a time, one decision, one conversation, one act of courage, one moment when someone quietly decides, I'm going to keep moving. Over the past 30 conversations in season 1, I've noticed something. The more clearly we see, the more courage we discover. Not because life suddenly becomes easier, because clarity has a way of reminding us that the next step has been there all along. Sometimes it was simply hidden beneath fear, or disappointment, or grief, or the belief that our story had already reached its best chapter. And if you've been with me this season, thank you. Thank you for inviting me into your morning walks, your drive to work, those quiet moments when life felt heavy, and those moments when something we talked about helped the fog begin to lift. Thank you for allowing me to walk beside you. I've never thought of these as episodes. I've thought of them as conversations. And conversations have a remarkable way of changing us. Not because someone gives us better advice, but because sometimes someone helps us see what we couldn't see on our own. And when we begin seeing differently, clarity makes movement possible. If there's one thing I hope you'll carry with you from this season, it's this. Every ending creates space for a new beginning. You don't have to know everything that's waiting ahead. You only have to be willing to take the next step. Because sometimes courage isn't found in knowing what's next. It's found in taking the next step anyway. So before we leave today, I'd like to leave you with one question. What is this ending making room for? Don't rush to answer it. Just carry it with you. You may discover that while you've been grieving, life has quietly been preparing a beautiful new beginning. If these conversations have helped you think more clearly, live more intentionally, and move forward with greater hope, I'd love to continue the journey with you. The Forward in Freedom community is a place where these conversations continue, where awareness becomes power, and where one new perspective can change what we see next. And if someone came to mind while you were listening today, someone who may be quietly carrying a heavy suitcase of their own, share season 1 with them. Maybe they don't need another answer. Maybe they simply need a reminder that there is still a next step. And sometimes when we can't see what comes next, we have to trust that God can see what we cannot. I've learned that an ending may look like the end of our plans, but it doesn't mean the end of God's plan. Sometimes He's creating space for something we couldn't have imagined from where we were standing. I'll see you in season 2. I have a feeling we're just getting started. Before we leave today, may you have the courage to close every chapter that has already given you everything it was meant to give. May you carry forward the lessons without carrying unnecessary fear. May clarity continue calling you forward, one faithful step at a time. May hope meet you at every new beginning. And may you discover that some of life's most beautiful chapters could only be written because you found the courage to turn the page. Thank you, Lord. Again, thank you for spending the first season with me. Until next time, the fog is lifting. Clarity is calling you forward. This is where awareness becomes power. Let's move forward in freedom. I'm Tanya J.